Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Forward Joy. Today is a solo pod. And honestly, the timing of this is so perfect to talk about dating because Venus just moved into Pisces last week and it'll be here for 2 months. Collectively, we all benefit from this transit because Venus is exalted in Pisces, meaning it's happiest here. The energy is primed for romance, beauty, creativity, maybe a little extra spending because Venus does rule money as well. And it's definitely, an added boost for anyone with Pisces placements, but also water sign placements. I think to understand me and my outlook on dating is to also understand that I have a 12th house Pisces Venus. The 12th house is like one of the most mysterious houses, but it essentially like represents the subconscious, intuition, the self-undoing, things that are hidden from us. I'm also a Taurus rising, of course, and Taurus is ruled by Venus, so my chart ruler is my 12th house Venus. That is running the show. And having a 12th house Venus can be seen as negative or bad luck for love. But at the same time, my Venus is also in Pisces, which is exalted. So there's like a bit of a dance there. I think it does reflect the like conflicted journey I've had in this area of my life. Like in some ways, it's easy to feel like I've been unlucky in love because I've had very few long-term partnerships. But at the same time, I do feel quite lucky about the experiences I have had, even when they were short-lived or even with emotionally unavailable men. I was also emotionally unavailable at the time. So it's like we were meeting each other where we were at. A year ago, I had an astrology reading with Colin Bedell, who was last month's guest, and there's a few things he said in that reading that I think about like on a weekly basis as it pertains to my Venus placement. So, one, he told me that my Venus placement requires me to spiritualize my relationship with relationships. I'm still working out what that truly means and what that looks like for me. Number two, he said that this placement is about understanding and experiencing unconditional love given and received. Like we're talking divine love, and that is absolutely what I am after. And the last thing he said to me, which I actually included in my newsletter when I reconnected with my ex last year, Colin said, consider the ways in which the universe assigns you to people who have the maximum opportunity for soul growth. And I actually think that is the only way to sum up my romantic history. Like deep down, I really believe that all the men that I've experienced, like they came into my life for a reason. And I really have no regrets about any of the men that I have been involved with because through these encounters, I've learned about myself, about relationships, about navigating my own like sense of self, my self-worth, navigating my needs, with another. And this is also the basis of karmic relationships. Like they are sometimes short-lived, turbulent, but they're there as teachers or to help you like close a loop from a past life, if you believe in that. I obviously do. I also have Saturn in the seventh house. And so my greatest lessons in life come through committed partnerships. And this is an area of my life where I am constantly seeking mastery. Now, this is not everyone's experience, of course, but like if you have 12th house or a lot of 8th house placements, like that does bring a lot of karmic situations into your life, whether they're romantic or not. I have spent so much time looking outside of myself, looking to others for advice because I felt like I never received the handbook for how to navigate romantic relationships. Colin had also said in my reading, like, so much of the information that I receive about dating is actually like antithetical to my chart, which I think was really, really validating to hear and like kind of like it confirmed what I always felt deep down. Again, this is why I really love astrology. And trying to understand your birth chart. I think when we can really accept ourselves and love ourselves for who we are, like that's when things really open up for us on so many levels. But it's a journey, right? And I think so much about the way that we function or we try to function in life, like we're constantly influenced by a society that tells us there is a certain way to live, right? And so it takes time to reconcile that sometimes we're not meant to live on that timeline or on that path that society tells us we're supposed to. So, January actually made 5 years that I've been doing this newsletter. And one of the many reasons why I wanted to start it is because I love talking and writing about love. Okay, Carrie Bradshaw. But like so much of my existence has been consumed by thoughts about relationships and the pursuit of love. It's just very core to my being. And in my 20s, I wasn't certain that I was actually deserving of the love that I wanted. So I downplayed its importance in my life. And now I'm like, yeah, of course I want love. Like I'm in a place because I've done so much work where I can stand so firm in that. I'm not embarrassed by that. Um, and the fact that like I don't want just any love, like I want this spiritual, otherworldly, divine connection. So the goal of this episode is not necessarily like to give anyone advice. Dating and relationships are so nuanced, and one person's advice is never going to fit like everyone in their situations. I'm here to simply share my dating philosophy and outlook because I really had no framework on how to date or how to be in a healthy relationship. Like through therapy, books, healers, like my own inner compass, I've navigated through so much shit. And I have such a better understanding and clarity for what I want, what works, what doesn't. I have such better boundaries. I see myself as someone who is very emotionally and spiritually intelligent, and that is what I expect baseline from my romantic partners. I'm here to merge souls. So listen to this episode, take what might feel interesting to you, leave what doesn't. Enjoy. Okay, first we're going to kick it off with the apps. Am I on the apps? Yes, but barely. I tend to be on them more when I'm like home in New York since I live in the suburbs and I'm not, amongst all the hustle and bustle in New York City on a regular basis, but it's pretty painful to be on them right now. I won't lie, and I think a lot of other people are feeling that way as well. I've always struggled with the apps because I really believe in fate, and I've had fated encounters. I was actually talking about this with my therapist recently because I really struggle with control. That's something I'm working on, like at a very like deep subconscious level. And when it comes to astrology, or in astrology terms, I have Pluto on my descendant conjunct my south node. So sometimes like my brain thinks I can control or manipulate myself into a situation, like to meet someone. And that always leads to disappointment. So when I'm actually able to like drop out of that mode and I'm not expecting to meet someone, like things just tend to happen naturally. I've had some incredible meet cutes in my life. Number one being the guy that I had sex with for the first time. I wrote a newsletter about this. He literally jumped out of a cab to meet me. And sometimes I think like, did I imagine that? But like, no, he really did. I was at the Jane Hotel one night and I was leaving. I was walking to the end of the street to get a cab, and I remember like seeing his cab pass me by. And like the next second, he had jumped out and was like running down the street to me and was like, "Where are you going?" And I was like, "I'm going home." And he was like, "No, can you please come back and have a drink with me?" Um, and of course I did because he was very handsome. And yeah, you can read that newsletter to know the rest of the story. Of course, like I do think you can still meet people from apps and sometimes it feels fated. Like I kind of feel that way about my ex-boyfriend. There was just like there was just no world in which like he and I would have ever crossed paths, but we still like just had this really great connection. And yeah, I've found a few like needle in the haystack men on apps. I have a real strategy to being on the apps though. And I feel like it helps me to not lose my mind. So I don't swipe much in order to conserve my energy. I just respond to whoever, likes my profile, sends me a comment. If I'm bored, maybe I will swipe for a little bit, but usually I can't be bothered. And like most, I'm concerned about the quality on dating apps. Like the majority of men on dating apps are avoidants because they get thrown back into the dating pool most often. In the past, I have tried paying for an app for, say, like a month or two, but I really don't know that I feel it's worth it. Like, I wouldn't do it again. Definitely not at this point in the game. Yeah. I don't like to spend more than 48 hours talking to someone on a dating app. It is pointless. Like, this idea that if you spend a long time chatting with them, you'll get to know them better. No, you just need to send a few messages back and forth, make a plan to meet. I also have no qualms about being the first to ask to meet up because then men are forced to make a decision. A lot of men just want an ego stroke and they want a pen pal. And they will keep you chatting on that app for days with no intention to meet you. I'm not going to let myself be dragged into anything of that nature. Any man I have dated in a real way that I've met off an app did not want to chit chat forever. Conversation flowed really easily, and they were quick to meet in person. I don't give them my number, and I sure as hell do not give them my social media. I don't want anyone that I'm trying to get to know romantically to follow me on social media. I made a video on TikTok last year about this. If I can't come monitor you at your job, why should you monitor me at mine? No, thank you. It's far too much information too soon. I just don't need them like in my business like that or feeling like they know what's going on in my life. Like most of the men over the last few years that I've dated were not active on social media, and that is very attractive to me. Now, let's talk meeting people in person because I am not afraid to pick up a man in person. First off, my belief is giving out your number is like the most low stakes thing you can do. You don't even need to talk to them. If you don't hear from them, you can just chalk it up to they're taken. But I'm also not freaked out by the idea that like someone might not be into me. Like it's okay, I'm not into everyone. Like you have nothing to lose by just giving your number out. A few months before I had met my ex-boyfriend in 2023, I was having lunch at, I think, Corner Bar in New York City with a friend of mine, and there was a really handsome guy sitting at the end of the bar by himself. And I feel like we have made eyes a couple times. And so my friend and I were first to leave, but I didn't want to, I don't know, I was like, I don't want this opportunity to just like go. And I didn't really want to like approach him. So I just wrote my number down on a matchbox and I gave it to the waitress and asked her to give it to him as I was leaving. He texted me like an hour later. We went out twice, but it was very clear he and I were like on totally different pages. But like when I want something, I'm not afraid to go after it. It's just like what do you have to lose? The guy, Charles, that I interviewed for my newsletter in 2021, still some of my best work to this day. I also picked him up at brunch. Well, we kind of picked each other up. Um, my friend and I were sitting at the table next to him and his friends. I overheard them talking about Justin Bieber. So I inserted myself into their conversation because I love Justin Bieber. I think we kind of spent the rest of the meal like all kind of chatting between the tables. And then when he left, he asked me for my number. I think last year I really noticed that like when I put myself in new situations, especially new situations where there's going to be a lot of people around, like it was just easier to meet someone or like have a little flirt. Um, the thing about wanting to meet people off the apps is like it requires a lot more effort, more time doing things off your phone. Also, I feel like I just have to throw out this reminder that like I know everyone desires to like meet someone in person, but sometimes meeting someone in person, like sometimes they're just as crazy as anyone you can meet off an app. Like they're still a stranger. Also, first guy that ever ghosted me was someone I met through friends. So it's just not always foolproof. But I will say, a really fun exercise for flirting. I do this all the time. Eye contact is like is like such a foundational principle for me for flirting. And so I make a point to make eye contact and smile at people I see on the street, even if I don't find them attractive. Because then it like primes you for the moment that you do see someone attractive. So you don't do that, like you kind of like freeze and then look away. Like you'll just find it easier to maintain eye contact. And yeah, sometimes when you do this and the person smiles back, like, oh my God, you get this like little jolt of electricity. Like I love it. Even if they don't like stop you and ask you for your number, nothing comes of it. It just puts a little pep in your step. I absolutely love it. Now, first dates. I'm sorry, but I'm not splitting the bill. I'm not, I wasn't raised that way, okay? It's not my ministry. I don't even really like to pretend that I might split the bill. Like, I'm not really doing that, like, oh, let me reach for my wallet. But I really don't have high expectations for a first date in terms of how much effort. Like, I think there's this whole thing about like, "Ugh, I really want them to make effort." And yeah, I get it, but like, I think we're all also like dating, I don't know, a lot more than like people dated 20 years ago because of apps and like how much access we have to people. So like this expectation that I don't know that I see online of like, oh, he should send you a car and, take you to a nice dinner, like that's fun, sure, but I'm not impressed by those things. And like, I only want to go to dinner with someone I like. I'll be real. I don't want to spend a meal with someone that I don't really know. And for me, like the barrier for entry is like your soul. How comfortable are you with yourself, like being open, being vulnerable? And I think the best place to figure that out is on a walk. Like my go-to first date is meet at a coffee shop near the park or whatever and go for a walk. Like, sure, if it's going really well, then maybe we could move to a restaurant. But like, first, I just want to like catch the vibe and see what's happening. I know texting brings up a lot of feelings for everyone and a lot of different opinions. There's a lot of debates about how much texting is normal, and everyone really has to decide what's right for them. But I can't stress enough that, like, no amount of texting in the early stages of dating is going to help you get to know someone. It is a fast track to false intimacy. That is something I'm trying to avoid at all times. Like you need to get to know someone in person or the very least like on the phone. That should be the baseline for connection. Like men love pen pals, and that is something I have zero interest in engaging with. Like my ex-boyfriend really broke me out of this mindset that I needed to text all the time with a guy. Like he was not into phones and like he did not have social media. We just did not text every day, even when we were apart. I mean, we were kind of always apart because he didn't live in London even when I was there. Um, we just we tended to talk on the phone or like FaceTime more. And like that level of connection really satiated me in a way that texting never could. So it's like if we spent like an hour on the phone, I'm like, okay, I'm good. Like, let's talk at the end of the week. We both have busy lives. Texting is just like a very cheap form of connection to me. Like, it's almost like pigging out on candy. And when you start out texting all the time with someone, there's nowhere for it to go but down. And then that sparks anxiety. Like, I don't subscribe to the idea that if you don't hear from a man every single day, he's not interested in you. I used to think that way when my anxious attachment was running the show because it was really hard for me to trust that a connection was there and that it could survive without me being like present or trying to get like in their face. So if like I didn't hear from them, I was like, oh, well, they don't like me. we should be more focused on, is the person actually reaching out to me to see me, to plan dates? Like, that's all I care about. Like, it is now a turn off to me if someone wants to text too much and there's no plans to see each other. I don't know who sold us on like the concept of the spark. I'm someone who has experienced really intense magnetic chemistry with men in the past. Like sometimes I wonder, are there other people who experience chemistry on this level like this? Or like how many people really experience this? It feels so good, but it's now a red flag to me. Something about it is just like it's too familiar and arousing for my nervous system. Like nothing good comes from that kind of connection. It ends just as quickly as it starts. I won't do that to myself anymore. Like I want someone who feels safe to my nervous system. I've really been able to course correct that over the years because I was just so attracted to men who were ambivalent and sent mixed messages, and but they were really physically attracted to me, so it felt like that was enough or that was sustainable, and it just was not. Now, let's talk about sex, baby. Starting off with a 12 date rule. I am a disciple of matchmaker Maria, my dear friend. I've interviewed her twice for Forward Joy, and I really believe in her 12 date rule. Although, to be fair, I have never actually made it to 12 dates. Listen, she says sometimes rules are made to be broken. But I think it's just a no-brainer for those who get attached easily. Like it gives you the chance to build an emotional connection before sex gets involved and clouds your judgment. I think, I don't know, the last two guys that I dated more seriously, I probably made it to like 8 dates. But sex is a topic I would really love to continue to like dive into deeper in here. And, I was a late bloomer when it came to dating and sex. Like, I did not go on my first real date until I was 24. And that's probably not even that late. But in comparison to where all my friends were, I was late, very late. All of my friends were having sex in college. I lost my virginity at 25. And I have no regrets about my timeline and how it played out because in hindsight, I'm like, I think it saved me a lot of pain and a lot of bad sex. I also didn't drink a lot, so I think that was a huge factor into how I navigated like sexual encounters and whatnot. Like, sure, I was hooking up and stuff in college, but I just was not gonna fuck anyone. All of my sexual encounters were sober. And still to this day, I I just don't drink a lot. I've never blacked out. I've never been like truly drunk. That's part of my control stuff. That's for another time. Um, I operate really intuitively about whether or not I'm gonna have sex with someone. The first guy that I wanted to lose my virginity to, and I could have lost my virginity to, in the moment, I just got this ping, like this voice that told me, don't do it, it's not worth it. And I am so thankful that I didn't. And I wrote about this in my newsletter about losing my virginity, so you can get all the details there. It really was one of the best decisions that I could have made for myself. And then on the flip side, when it came to the guy that I did have sex with for the first time, of course, there was a part of me that was like a little hesitant. I'd only known him for like 24 hours, but I'd had this overwhelming sense that if I didn't have sex with him, I was going to miss out on something really incredible. And that was true. And I know that probably like sounds a little weird. And who's to say, like, I don't know how it would have played out if we didn't have sex. Like, would we have still had this really incredible week together? Because he was on vacation in New York. And yeah, I don't know. But I do know that I had this incredible first time. And like, that week that I spent with him, it was a little longer than a week, but like I really cherish that. And yeah, not a lot of people have great like first time stories. So I don't take that for granted. I feel very, very lucky. Typically, like if I'm going into something thinking that like it has the potential for a relationship, like I'm not sleeping with them right away. If I jump into sex first with someone, like I probably am not taking it very seriously. Even though I saw myself as someone like who got attached really easily, there were still times where I could engage in casual sex and I didn't feel overly invested. But it was always like a case by case scenario. Like to bring up astrology again, like I have so Mars, which rules sex. In my natal chart, I have Mars conjunct Uranus, which is like the planet of rebellion, in my eighth house of sex, death, and transformation. So I can see how that has also kind of like played out in my approach to relationships. So this again is why I say like I do operate quite intuitively. I'm very aware of my sexual energy. This is something I have explored with myself through masturbation since I was in middle school. And you know what? It paid off because I know my body. I know what I like. I know what gets me off. I am outspoken in bed. I'm not afraid to be directive. Like, if I don't like what you're doing, I'm going to direct you to the right place. Like, I don't want to be doing something I don't want to be doing. I know how to ensure that I can have an orgasm. And fortunately, the majority of the men that I have slept with have also like really prioritized my pleasure. Like that is really important to me. And I don't know, I think also a byproduct of just really seeking out men who had like some, well, you know what? I won't even go there and say like seeking out men who have like emotional intelligence. I do think most of the men I've been with have been emotionally intelligent, but also most of the men that I have slept with are not American. And I think that truly plays a huge part in it. I'm sure someone will disagree. And I'm not saying every time, but there's something to that. Someone needs to do a study. Um, if a relationship could be like sustained on sex alone, my ex and I would probably be married by now. And I'm gonna just end this little portion by saying, like, I don't believe in dating someone I'm not physically attracted to. Scorpio rules my seventh house of committed partnership. Like, if the passion ain't there, neither am I. And of course, I know looks aren't everything. There have certainly been times where like I've met someone and I wasn't initially drawn to them, but then, you know, after a few times hanging out, you kind of realize, oh, their personality or just something about them like really brings out their attractiveness. I love when that happens. But like there's got to be something. And men are not out here dating women they're not attracted to. So I don't know necessarily why there's sort of an expectation that like women should forego that. I'm not here for that. Someone had asked me about whether I think relationships are like luck versus alignment, and I really think it's both. I love the saying, I don't know who said it or where I got it from, but like you have to put yourself in the way of good fortune. So like you're not going to meet someone while you're sitting at home. I have to remind myself that constantly because I love being at home. Um, but as I said, I also really believe in fate, alignment, serendipity. Like I hate to acknowledge it sometimes, but someone new has often come into my life like when I least expected it. But it's hard because I'm always expecting it or I'm always wanting it, and looking for it. And I'm trying to not do that as much because it just seems to work against me. But a really great example of this is 2 years ago. 2 years ago, yeah, I was in Ibiza. It was in October, it was the off season. I just went to have a little weekend by myself. I was staying at this really cute boutique hotel, but like it was all like old European couples and just me. And one night I was having dinner at the hotel and nobody was in the restaurant. Not a single soul. It was just me and the staff. And I remember feeling like so aware of how alone I was. I wasn't lonely. I was just like, oh my God, it's so funny that literally I'm the only person here because the night before I also ate in the restaurant and there were other people there. And by the time I was done eating, all of a sudden there was this like really handsome Spanish guy like standing by my table talking to me and like asking me what I was doing like at the hotel and whatnot. And like he invited me to have a drink at the bar with him and his friend and then like invited me out. And it turns out he was like connected to the owners of the hotel. And but like that truly came out of nowhere. And he said like he had seen me earlier laying out by the pool. I had not seen him at all. So yeah, I was actually like really blown away that that happened because I just totally went into that weekend being like, I'm gonna be alone, whatever, I'm gonna do this and that. And like there's it's the off season, so I just didn't expect like that I could ever meet anyone. So obviously I'm an astrology girly. Um, and I do think about it a lot in terms of relationships and stuff. And people always ask me about compatibility and this and that. And like, I think it's really important to know that astrology is never going to tell you like whether a relationship with someone is going to last. It can only really show you like the strengths and weaknesses of a couple. And, back in the day when I didn't know much about astrology, like, of course, I was obsessed with like knowing a guy's sun sign and wanting to make sure it was compatible. And then when it got to a point where I was kind of like learning a bit more, sure, I wanted to know their sun, moon, rising. And I also used to like purchase these little like compatibility charts on astro.com. But then I noticed it was like kind of getting my hopes up because I was too focused on like the positives and not really paying attention to the negatives, um, or the challenges, I should say. Also, like, listen, even when you see someone's natal chart, it doesn't mean that they are living by their chart. I think that has also been a huge lesson for me. Like, if you look at my natal chart, like, I am living by that chart. Other people are not living by their charts. Um, so yeah, then I got to a point where I was like, you know what? I I don't want to be influenced by the astrology. So maybe when I get to know them and decide if like I really am interested in them, then I'll look into their chart. Now, where I'm at in my journey is I actually want to see their chart up front, especially if I'm meeting someone off an app. And I have a thing in my profile that says, like, I study astrology and, like, I'd love to know your sun, moon, and rising. And then if we're really talking about it, I'll try to get them to tell me their time of birth and look up their chart. The men that I attract tend to be interested in it. Like a man who's not interested in astrology or like not the slightest bit curious is never going to get near me. Just no. No, no, no. Um Luckily like my ex was really I mean, he was very, very spiritual. He has a Scorpio rising. And so, he liked hearing me talk about it. I would send him like little notes for the like new moon and full moon. He was definitely like the most spiritually inclined man I've ever dated, which was really, really nice. But yeah, I wanna see the astrology up front. Like I met a guy last year and at a dinner party, and we had been talking about astrology. And then when I looked at his chart, I saw he had this like gnarly 12th house Leo stellium, and I was just like I don't need that energy in my life. And yeah, and it really just it played out to be nothing. Okay, someone asked me about like the timeline for transition to dating to official. And if we're adults here, and I'm talking like 34 plus, I'm really aligned with Matchmaker Maria's timeline, which is like like you should be official by 2 to 3 months. And by 6 months, you're like, okay, are we in it to win it or not? Like, of course, listen, anything is possible. Um, but to be official, to be like boyfriend and girlfriend by 2 to 3 months, yes, absolutely. At the end of the day, I think such an important part of this is like getting really honest about what you actually want. You've got to be real about what you want and own it, as long as it's, within reason. And I think that can be tricky line for us to walk, right? You're like, okay, how much of my expectations or my requirements actually like reasonable? And I'm also someone who likes to believe that, like, sure, there sometimes we fall in love with the person that we least expect, right? So you can have this list or have this idea, but you still have to be kind of open to, like, that the universe knows best. Like, the universe knows what is best for you. And that's really the approach that I take. I'm like, who am I? Who am I to say what I absolutely need? Because in so many other instances in my life, I feel like the universe has shown me, that sometimes what I'm asking for is not even as great as what they're willing to give me. But sometimes it starts as small as, like, when I was in my late 20s, like, I decided I don't want to entertain guys who text me late at night unless they're on a different time zone. Like, none of this, what are you doing at 11 p.m., 12 a.m., etc. Like, that's over. And I really feel like when I mentally acknowledged that I didn't want to allow that energy anymore, I stopped attracting guys that did that. Like, that was a absolute boundary for me. And sure, like, if a guy did text me late night, I'm just not, I just wouldn't respond. Like, they're welcome to text me again during normal hours, but I'm not responding to any late night texts. I've really worked hard to get to a place where I could take responsibility for the ways in which I have been a participant in my own suffering by allowing or putting up with behavior that I know I didn't like. This is self-abandonment, right? Going against your own needs to keep a mediocre connection. The men who sent mixed signals, ghosted, and came back are the ones that, I was just waiting and making myself available in hopes that they would choose me when it was, like, clear that they were incapable of that. And I definitely think I'm in a place where I actually have a lot more compassion for men who are avoidantly attached. I think collectively we demonize avoidant men, and some of them really are out here behaving very, very badly. And they can't take any responsibility. But I feel bad for some of them because anxious and avoidance are really two sides of the same coin. But the avoidance really get crucified when I think they're struggling with a lot of fear as well and getting flooded by their feelings, etc. So, not to say that I would purposefully engage in a relationship with one. It would really depend. They would have to be doing the work and showing signs that they are willing and trying to work through it. I think for me, it's been really important to realize that I needed to want myself more than I wanted to be chosen by a man. So I had to be willing to walk away, willing to, stay single versus putting up with a connection that just didn't feel good. And I think desiring yourself is such an important aspect of that as well. It's the whole thing, self-love, desiring yourself, that question that comes up of, like, oh, would you date yourself? Like, yeah, I sure as hell would. Like, I think I'm magic. I absolutely would date myself. And I have very high expectations of myself, and therefore I have high expectations of others. I know there's a lot of conversations online about, like, finding a man who provides, and I'll be very clear, like, I'm not really looking for a man to provide for me financially. That has never been a top priority for me. Um, of course, I'm very privileged to be able to say that because I can provide for myself, right? Like, I've got that piece on lock. Would it be nice to end up with someone who could really carry their weight, match me, or best me on, how much money we make? Sure. But I'm really looking to, like, again, like, merge souls over merge bank accounts. And again, I know that's a very fortunate position to be in. And I completely understand that financial stability is really important to some other people, especially if you want to have a family. Let's just be mindful that we're not setting ourselves up for financial abuse, please. Finally, someone asked me about dating when you want a baby more than you want a partner, and I can't really relate to that. And I don't even think I'm equipped to truly speak on that because I don't want a baby that badly. And I get it. There's pressure that women face who feel that way and who really want to have children. So I completely empathize on that level. Not to say that I don't feel any pressure at all. Of course I do. Like I'm about to be 40 and single and um, you know, when I was turning 30, I thought the worst thing was to be 30 and single. Now I'm 40 and single, and it's like, well, I'm in a completely different place. So I don't think it's bad, but still the messages that you get is that it's bad and that dating is going to get so much harder for you. Um, and I just don't really, I don't know. I just don't have that mentality. I was even at a dinner party recently and someone was saying how like, oh, well, men my age are going to be wanting to date like women who are younger. And I'm like, I know that happens, but I'm not concerned about that. I'm just not. Um, Again, I'm like, not to keep bringing everything back to my ex-boyfriend, but he is a pretty like commendable individual. Um, but he, I mean, I was just like 4 years younger than him, and I think the woman that he was dating before me was just 2 years younger than him. And he just made it very clear like he was not really interested in dating women who were super young. And I just think the men that I tend to attract like are don't have that mentality. So that's honestly it's just really not something that I worry about at all. Um, but yeah, as I said, of course, like there's some level of pressure that I feel. There's a lot of pressure that women who want to have a baby feel because of, our internal clock. Um, I just still think, again, like you just have to be careful. Like you don't want to have a baby with just anyone. It's such an important decision of like who will be the father of your child? Who will you potentially like co-parent with if this relationship doesn't pan out? I could truly like go on and on and on and on forever about this, but I'm going to wrap it up here. I wouldn't have been able to get to this place of clarity if I hadn't spent the last 10 years of my life really deconstructing my patterns, my beliefs, my trauma. I'm in a place where I am just so much more accepting of like who I am and like how I want to show up in relationships and what I think is right for me. And I think we're very, very, very quick to judge others about being single and their relationship journey. And at the end of the day, it's just like everyone has their own shit and everyone is on their own journey. And so I just had to make peace with the fact that like my romantic history just happens to look different than the way that I was told it was supposed to look. And of course, that brought me so much like shame and embarrassment for years, like throughout my 20s. Like I thought the worst thing anyone could find out about me is that I've never been in a relationship. Like it was my deepest like secret. But I've made peace with that now. It just doesn't mean anything is wrong with me. Like I've had a lot of fun. I've been with men who have been like so fun and caring and adoring and sexy and tender and taught me things. Yeah, sometimes even if they were emotionally unavailable. There's been a lot of tears, obsession, heartbreak. Like I wouldn't be who I am or even have these stories to tell if they weren't a part of my journey. And ultimately, that journey also helped me come back to myself. And so, as much as like, yes, I want this romantic love, as I've been saying quite a bit, it's like this self-love that I've gained is actually the real story here. And that's why when you look at a birth chart, the first house, which is the house of self, is across from the house of committed partnerships. That's our mirror. That's where we learn. They just bounce off of each other. Yeah, so the self-love that I have gained, that's the real story. All right, until next time.